So, first question is, how did you get started? So, you also said that you're from a STEM background. So, how did your STEM background, how did you get started in that? And then also, where did creativity get into the picture? Oh, yeah, we might as well go in the same order.
So for me, my parents are actually creators. So for me, going the science route was actually breaking the mold in a way, and I allowed my curiosity lead me. So growing up, I was involved in like choirs and being in that creative environment. I studied like fine art for GCSE and music. I did both the science and the artsy stuff. But when it came to A levels, you have to become a bit more, I don't know, niche and make that decision. And I remember having a conversation with my uncle. So I don't know what to do. I like both. And he was like, okay, what will be easier in terms of if you choose one route and want to go the other way, which one will be easier right now based on what you know? And I chose the science path. And I thought, okay, I'll be able to carry on my artistic passions outside of that. It was tough during levels doing that. And again, allowing my curiosity lead me. I studied natural sciences as my undergrad, and that was an integrated master's. And that was actually an interdisciplinary science degree. So again, that element of still thinking about how things connect and that creative side was still feeding into how I viewed science. And again, following on, I went on to a PhD in neuroscience. I was not planning to do a PhD, but again, I think the beauty in science is the more you study, the more you realize, wow, there's more to know, yes, but you're meeting people, you're expanding, the curious side of you about how you investigate things and you become a better researcher, and that was making me a better person, like, holistically. So that's sort of how I got started and carried on. I've not touched on the poetry side, but I'll let everyone else speak first.
It's a really tough act to follow. So for me, I've always been interested in video games. So I've got a twin brother, me and my twin brother were really close, and growing up, my mum got a second-hand Nintendo Entertainment System with Mario Bros and a game called Bubble Bubble, and I was obsessed. And I think it worked out really well because my brother is a graphic designer now, but at the time he loved art and loved like the characters on the screen. And I was always thinking, why when I press the right on the D-pad does Mario move to the right? Why when I press A does Mario jump? It was kind of like, I was enjoying the game, but I was always asking the question, why? And my primary school teacher saw this in me and really pushed my mum to get us a computer. She said it would be great for the twins' development, and because it was something to do with education, my mum obliged and got a computer, and a sign of my age, we were like one of the first families to get a computer with the internet on the street. So people used to come round and set up email accounts at our house, which is kind of crazy to think about now. And I think that really set things off in motion. I used to just go to the library and read books on Java and build websites. I had the opportunity to build websites for local businesses. So going into A-level, I knew kind of what I wanted to do. My secondary school didn't offer computer science, so I studied maths, art, IT, and philosophy, which I all really enjoyed. And then going into the workforce, I knew I wanted to kind of do a technical role. I had a very long commute. My commute was 3 hours every single day, so I built a small app, and my friends and family really liked it, but that's what your friends and family would say. So I used to go up to people on my very long commute and ask them to try out this iPhone app that I was developing. And people would look at me like I was crazy because, you know, people on their commute, you know, heads down, reading, you know, on Instagram or whatever, and people would give me really good feedback. People would be like, oh, I don't really understand, that button's really confusing. And I took that feedback and made the app better, and 16 apps later, working as an independent app developer, that curiosity that I have to just be able to think of an idea and to make it is something that really drives me. So I think, you know, very kind of simple beginnings, but having that curiosity and always asking why has really kind of led me down this path.
I think my journey is a lot more basic. Very impressive journey. For me, I was really good and really enjoyed maths and physics at school. Ever since primary school, I loved maths, and then in secondary school, I started really getting into science and physics. And my dad, when I was really, really young, always used to be like, you're going to be an engineer. And so, thinking back to it now, I'm like, would I have been an engineer if you didn't tell me I would be? Which is a bit existential. But I knew that as soon as I sort of got introduced to the idea of engineering, that I knew that I would like it a lot. Because it sort of fused the two sides of maths and physics in the real world. So during my secondary school, so I grew up in London, Tottenham, and during secondary school, I went to a girls' school. And so already, like, A-level physics was like 6 people. There wasn't that many people into it. But I still was pretty adamant that I was going to either study physics or engineering. And so I did that. I studied physics, maths, economics, and biology. I will say I didn't enjoy biology very much. And during school as well, it sounds quite silly saying now, but I really love the show Top Gear. I don't know if anyone's into Top Gear. But back then I was so into it, like obsessed with like all the cars that they'd show off and all the specs and everything. I was like, I really want to get into cars. But I think within like the automotive industry especially, a lot of people that work within automotive have like a background of like growing up and working on cars in the garage with their dad and like, or like going to racetracks and stuff like that, which isn't really something I had access to. So like stepping into that industry, I got like an idea of the type of people that I'd be working with. Not necessarily a bad thing, but it's just very different to my background, which I found a little bit intimidating initially. But I persevered, and I started watching Formula 1 as well, and I was like obsessed with Lewis Hamilton. Like I really want to like science cars and like just work in F1 in the industry and everything. So yeah, I did my A-levels, and then I studied an integrated masters for automotive engineering at the University of Leeds. And then I got a placement year as well. So I worked at BMW Motorsport for a year, and that was as a design engineer, working on high voltage battery design. And that was based in Oxford, so in the UK. And then coming out of uni, so like during university, I tried really hard to get experience in motorsport. Unfortunately, it didn't go my way, but I ended up taking my toe into the automotive industry a little bit with BMW. And then so after graduating, I got a role at McLaren Automotive, and that was also as a design engineer. So it was sort of like sports cars, so close enough. It was fast enough to sort of like satisfy that exhilaration part, but also automotive, which is the area of engineering that I really enjoyed, just fast cars in general. And so I think even like during university, I really that I was inclined towards the design engineering side. So I enjoyed CAD design and computer design parts and things like that. And then yeah, so about 2.5 years ago, I've been at SiSTEM doing design engineering as well.
Thank you. I have a question. This is open to anyone. So whoever wants to answer first can let me know. But what sparks your creative ideas? So this could either be with your creative side or your STEM side. What sparks the creativity within you?
I can go first. So I think for me, it's just the world around me. I've always been a very curious person, and I made an app called Who Am I? I just thought it would be really cool to see if I made an app that asked everyone the same question, what people would answer with. And after many weeks going back and forth with Apple's app review, so whenever you release a new app on the App Store, someone has to check it, so it's not AI, it's a human person that goes through it just to make sure that there's not spam apps. So there's a big issue with crypto apps and dating apps, because there's so many of them on the App Store. You have to do something unique. So this app, I think, because there's no app that just asks you one question, who are you? I had to go back and forth to kind of really justify the app, and working with the local council, I was able to have an event where people could go to a place, use the app, and then every single day we would print out the portraits of people that used it, kind of combining the digital and the physical aspect of it. But the fact that you can just think of an idea, you know, I just had an idea, I wonder what would happen if I asked, you know, the world one question, and then you can just build it. So I think just looking around the world and feeding my curiosity is a source of inspiration.
Live now with technology, AI, with that landscape, it's very fragmented, but at the end of the day, people are interacting with that environment. So that's very much at the heart of everything I do. Yeah.
I have a follow-up. Who are you? We've heard that who are you is an important question to ask, and everyone's answers are. I'm going to make this even more difficult, because I know you've already introduced yourselves and your professions, but I know, I don't know if any of you guys have seen on Instagram, there's been Instagram pages that ask you to describe who you are, but you can't talk about your job, you just have to talk about who you are as a person. So I guess with the creativity side and with this event being a mix of both of those, who are you without talking about your profession? Who are you as people? This is open again. I won't pick anyone to go first. And if you want to be fair, we can also answer this question as well.
So who am I? I am a nerd and a geek. I'm both. But I love it. I don't see it as something that is sort of an insult. It's something that has fueled very much how I view the world. I am a lover of movies and family and good food and good literature and culture. Someone who loves life. And in loving life, I allow that to lead a lot of things I do and how I interact with people. So that's who I am.
And she's a poet as well.
Yeah,
I'd say, well, probably the whole reason that my journey started, I'm a curious person. So I'd say, yeah, I'm a curious person that is always intrigued to know more and to find the answer to why certain things are the way they are and how can they be better.
I would echo both but I would also add a dreamer. I think ever since I was a kid, I had really, really big dreams, and I think it was great to be in an environment where, you know, that was encouraged. And I think regret is also like a big bad thing. And I think when I was growing up, you know, I used to be like super shy, you know, didn't want to talk to anyone. The fact that I used to just go up to people on the train, you know, introduce myself, say what I'm doing, and then ask for feedback, you know, really kind of shaped who I am today. I think people are amazing, you know, we're social creatures. I think we can learn from everyone. Everyone knows one thing that you don't. So, you know, kind of reaching out, talking to people is such an amazing trait. So, yeah, hopefully that makes sense. But basically, I'm going to top the previous answers.
You have it.
To echo that, because I was actually a dreamer, so when you said, yeah, I'm also a dreamer. I have a very big imagination, and I love words as well, and how words can be added together to make something beautiful. And I also love to see impact and change where in everything. Wherever I go in this world, I just love to see change being made positive. And I'm also an observer, so I like to look. I'm not a stalker. So I do like to
Is
look.
that why you like psychological?
I do like to look and observe the world around us to help me with my creative side.
I'll try and top all four of these amazing answers. But I would say I'm a storyteller. So through the work I do, pick up the mic, through meeting different people, I think it's kind of been echoed here that everyone's got a story to tell. And I think it's always funny to see the different aspects. So even as we saw today, there are people that are interested in different shows. Myself, I'm also a gamer. I love anime as well. I love comic book stuff. So it's also interesting sometimes in these more corporate settings when you might, I don't know, have a pendant and it's got for any Naruto fans, it might have the Leaf Village sign is, but it might have certain things on it, or you might wear a Superman top. And you're in a corporate setting, someone will be like, I see you. So I really love the stories that people tell, and I think it's one of the things that I sometimes feel like is overlooked, but I think everyone has a unique story that they can tell, and I think just hearing stories is really beautiful. So yeah.
Just on that, sorry, on the back of my phone, I've got a Pokemon card, and this Pokemon card has just given me so much mileage. I was in a H&M store and I was paying with my phone, and the guy who was serving me was asleep, half dead, and he saw the Pokemon card and he just completely transformed. He was like, what, do you like Pokemon? I was like, oh yeah, I'm a Pokemon fan. He was like, oh, what's your favourite Pokemon? And he was like, oh, do you want me to use my staff discount on But it was the change in the person, so I think, just being able to just be yourself, I think is amazing, so I just wanted to share that.
Thank you very much.
And I love the fact that obviously this event is about creatives and STEM and mixing the two. Traditionally, if you're in STEM, no one really thinks about STEM is quite rigid traditionally. But what do you think are some of the misconceptions STEM people could have on creatives, and what do you think creatives, misconceptions creatives could have for STEM people? Let's see. I want the STEM box to start.
I'm in both, so I see both sides. But I want to hear what you guys have.
Okay, I'll jump in. I think I'm in both, and I would say that what creative people think of people in STEM is that they're probably not the most outgoing bunch. They spend most of their time in darkness and alone, and then probably vice versa. That creative people maybe are too loud and too outgoing, need to calm down. So yeah, and kind of being in the middle, because I really enjoy code, but I also see code as a means to an end. I really like the design, because when people get in touch with me and talk about my apps, most of the time they are not saying, I really like the fact that you chose to use a Boolean to show the screen rather than something else. It's normally about the way the app looks and how it makes them feel. So it's great to be in that kind of middle ground. But what I'm trying to say is probably not the nicest on either side, but we should all just get along.
I'd probably say, I guess a misconception I probably have myself as well, because like you said, there's a sort of stereotype of STEM being very rigid and just working hard, head down, being an introvert, not speaking to people, not being sociable, that kind of thing. But I guess it depends on what we mean by creative versus creativity as well, because I think for me especially, before I probably wouldn't even count myself as very creative, horrible at art, I can't draw, I can't do this, I'm numbers and that's it, right? And then it literally only took one of my friends to be be like, oh, you design, you're quite artistic, like your role sounds like you are quite arty, like you probably do that stuff. Like, no, like I can't draw, can't do this, can't do that. But it's very like, I guess, a scale, or it depends on how you use the word creative and what you're saying. Because I wouldn't have said that I'm a creative, but I do use creativity in my role, and I do create things because I'm designing parts and I'm finding solutions to things and I'm making things fit and I'm working with designers who try and make my work look nice on the outside sometimes, especially in like the automotive industry where looks and how something is marketed is very important. So I work with a lot of creatives and I apply creativity to my role, even if I don't count myself as a creative.
So misconceptions, I think, so many. But I'm also looking at someone in the crowd who's also both a creative and in the STEM world. So I think that people in STEM feel that creativity just happens, right? That there's no research that goes behind it before a creative decides to maybe produce something in a certain way, whether you're a musician or a writer or a visual artist. Like, there's a lot more research that goes into things and how people choose to communicate, or the font you choose, or the colors you choose, or whoever designed this chose the colors and to use, like, to position things in a certain way to communicate something based off of a brief. So I feel like STEM, maybe we have that misconception that it just happens. Creatives with the STEM world, I think maybe they feel that rigid thing comes up a lot, that we're not as creative in STEM. I feel like a lot of people in STEM, yes, we tend to be more on the introverted side, but we have a loud inside world. And we're just finding ways to communicate through numbers or through code or through understanding the human body, and then we do use elements of creativity when we have to make posters for scientific conferences or presentations, so we do have to interact. Yeah, some misconceptions.
And then, because you mentioned things like briefs, how do you stay creative when you have client deadlines, you have time constraints, you have your manager on your back trying to tell you that you need to do this work or that doesn't look good? How do you keep your creativity ignited?
Yeah, I think this has been a journey for me actually. I've been a freelancer, I've worked in STEM, I've done stuff poetry-wise, and there is an element in the creative world that we do need structure, we do need deadlines, chase invoices, different things like that. How I spark or keep my creativity alive, especially when I have deadlines. I'm learning a lot more about the business side of like the creative world and marketing, especially been looking at P&Ls, and I'm not in the finance world at all, but I'm just like, okay, if I'm gonna be here for the long haul, I want to understand the structure of this, how this whole works on the business side. But things I've been very conscious about, like, okay, enjoying creativity again. I think there's a risk when you are a creative and you are working to deadlines that you can lose that spot because you just see it as just another job and you forget why you even started. So I've been very intentional about going to my friends' exhibitions or reading a book just because, and not because it's for a project, or watching a movie with my brother and just enjoying it for the sake of enjoying it. So that's how I keep it alive, and just reminding myself something a colleague of mine says, we're saving PDFs, not lives. And as someone who's come from like a very STEM heavy neuroscience medical world into creative space, that just helps reground me and remember to have fun with it, because there's a sense of play that keeps things going.
I think for me personally, I love to see what other people are doing, so I get creativity from what other people have done. So I've got my phone, and this isn't an exaggeration, I've got 2,500 apps on my phone. I haven't used a lot of them, but just download, I'll go into the App Store, like, oh, this looks really cool, and then I'll download it, and I might do that a couple of times a week, and amass a big collection of apps on my phone. And I think for me to elevate and to be better as a creative, as a software engineer, I need to get inspiration from, I'm one person, I'm a silo, but I think, when you are able to look at the masterpieces from other people, you can definitely draw inspiration. I'll give an example. So in my apps, a friend of mine who's a independent app developer, he really lent into, hey, I'm Sean, I'm an independent app developer, I do everything by myself. And I was really shy about kind of exposing myself to say, hey, look at me, I made this app. But then I did. So on the onboarding, when you download my apps, there's like a page where it's like, hi, I'm Tai, I made this app because I'm really passionate, blah, 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 blah. And the impact that that's had is incredible. The amount of people that will email me and say, I didn't know you could make an app by yourself, or it's really impressive, or it's really cool. And in the settings screen, if you tap on my face, it spins, and the more you tap on it, the more it spins. The amount of emails that I've got saying, it's really cool that when you tap your face, it spins, it's crazy. And I think that is just something that I saw in another app. It wasn't someone's face, it was a record, which makes sense, your face is spinning around, but it's little things like that where I'm like, there's so much amazing creativity out in the world. Why not, borrow some of it? There's a famous quote, good artists. Yeah, still like an artist, yeah. Thank you for saving me. And I think there's so much truth in that. I think most, your painters and everything, will say they're influenced by, people that came before them. So that's how I keep my creativity alive.
I just want to ask you one question. You said you've got 2,000 apps.
Yeah.
What plan are you on?
Yeah,
what plan are you on?
1 terabyte.
Okay.
So yeah, a lot of data. A lot of apps.
I guess the question was, how do I keep creating?
Yeah, when we have pressures of work, of client deadlines and demands, and how do you keep that?
I guess my whole role sort of revolves around challenges, and so I think in order to lead my role, you need to enjoy a challenge. I think, especially in Formula One, they say it's the sort of pinnacle of motorsport, so it's sort of everything in motorsport, but just heightened. Whether that comes to workload and deadlines, to the sort of technical challenges that we face at work. I think all in all, everyone that I work with has a challenge and wants to win, and I think you need to have that drive in order to succeed, because it's a lot. It's a lot of work, and especially when things like regulations change and sort of preparing for a big reg change next year. It just sort of kicks it into another level. And so you need to thrive on being faced with a challenge and the chance to win. And I think that's usually what drives most people in the industry.
I have a book recommendation, because when we were talking about the importance of everyone being creatives, if you like reading, Rick Rubin is a music producer, has a book called The Creative Actor Way of Being, and it talks about how everyone is a creative just through their lived experiences. So just through the way that you perceive the world, the way you interact with things, the way that you process information, the way you present information is very different for each person. So if you are looking to explore the creativity part, please do check that out. But I do have another question, because obviously we're talking about creativity and STEM. And it wouldn't make sense to not talk about some of the big conflicts regarding the conversation of AI. And AI usage with how that could potentially impact creatives. We see that there are tools that have made, for example, like video production easier. And I think, like a pretext to this question would be, I don't know, again, I'm a superhero fan, so I'm going to keep plugging in my nerdy side as much as possible. But I don't know if anyone watched the new Superman film, but James Gunn, who directed the film, basically says the way Lex Luthor doesn't like Superman is the way certain creatives see AI and the use of AI, in the sense that they're very much just like, it's coming for our jobs, they're afraid, they're saying that, you know, there's not necessarily that human side to it. And obviously with anything, it's not always black and white, there's always a grey area, there's ways it could be used in the right way, ways it could be used in the wrong way, and we've seen that throughout the last 5 years. But my question to everyone on the panel would be, I guess looking at that conversation, what is your opinion on that? It's a big question.
So just to understand the question, how it's going to impact the creative industry, or?
I think more so, like, what was your opinion on that conversation of AI is coming for creatives? Do you think that it's going to empower them? Do you think it's going to take their jobs? I guess as someone who works in the creative industries, should I have concerns? Or is this sort of a new branch of, I guess, kind of like this event is showing? It's not necessarily like a clash, but almost like a merge, because we'll then see almost like a new, I don't know, I'm not going to even try and come up with a new acronym, but are we going to see a new field, which is basically the creative industries and STEM merging to produce something that allows this unique combination?
I think from my point of view as a, primarily a software engineer, with AI, I see AI as a tool. I think when people correspond with me in terms of my son/daughter, or I have an idea to make an app, it's almost guaranteed to say, can I use AI to make an app? And I think, I must sound like a broken record where, AI, has so many great applications. Like, I use it, I'll write a function, I'll put it into Claude and say, is this efficient? And Claude might say, yeah, it looks great, but you can add these things. And I think, because I've been making software for such a long time, I can distill that and say, actually, it's hallucinating. And I'll say, actually, it's wrong, it's actually made, it's multi-threaded, it's actually not that efficient. And then Claude will say, you're absolutely right. But I think for, if you're not well versed in that, you will take that as gospel. And I think that's where the problems lie. A lot of correspondence I've received are quite clearly AI generated, because the S's will be Z's, there's lots of M dashes as well. It might be, instead of hello Taiwo or hello Tai, it will be, some, I don't know, the person who's sending me the email, just because, they're writing it on whatever. So, and that's kind of scary, because it's almost like you're blindly taking what it's, giving. And as someone who, takes great pride in design, I think the fact that it can create, image gen on Midjourney and Gemini, and when everyone was doing the Studio Ghibli style pictures, it's very impressive. It's scarily good, and I think it's one of those technologies, maybe like the printing press, or now we get our news mainly on phones. It's going to be a part of the way we live. AI is here to stay. It's not going to go away anywhere. I think for me, I think it's great, but it's just the way that we use it, the application of it. And I think, especially for the creative industry, because it's, like I said earlier, about taking ideas from other people. The Studio Ghibli is like, make an image using Studio Ghibli, and it's trained on so much data that it can just produce in a very little amount of time something that's very good, really really good. And I'll leave it on on this, but a lot of my contemporaries or people that are making apps, they will leverage AI to do a lot of the creative tasks if they're not creative people. So if they're really technical, they need to create an app icon, they'll just use ChatGPT or Gemini or whatever image gen. And you know the way that AI kind of leaves those artifacts, you can kind of tell if it's generated. I would say 70–80% of new apps that I see will have like a image gen as the app icon, and I just see that getting higher and higher, and I see the quality of generated images getting better and better. So it is, to me, I always say to people, it's a tool, it's not the be all and end all, it's a tool. It's like having, I don't know, an assistant or something, you know, something to kind of look over it, but you still need to use human judgment, human feel, yeah, so a tool.
Just want to say that all views are my own and do not reflect the company. Yeah, just echoing that it's a tool, definitely. Have a lot of views on AI. Coming from a neuroscience background, neural networks are the basis of it. So it's just watching the evolution of this. I believe AI is still very much in its test stage. It takes a lot of training, a lot of data. A lot of the tools are what we call supervised learning. So it is based off of data and then it improving and all of that stuff. Impact on jobs, creative field, everything. There are two sides to this. I can see it being a tool in helping people who don't have the resources or can't pay creatives to do something. On the other hand, we need to be very careful, but in the sense that I think it actually empowers creatives to emphasize why it's important to employ creatives and human beings to look over the work, to have that human interaction, to have. We can't train AI to have emotions. That is very clear. Like even when you read something, you can tell it's AI because it sounds so robotic. When you see something designed by AI, you can tell like it's missing something. When you look at a piece of art or something done by a human creative, that element of someone has done this, AI can't replicate that. So I also feel like we are in a unique space as creatives and as professionals as well to just emphasize that we are specialists. What you were saying about code, that you can put something into Claude and be like, what is this? And then it might give you something wrong, but because of your studies and your expertise, you can be like, actually, that's wrong. I'm not going to take that as gospel truth. I'm going to refine that. And we need to speak up more as creatives and professionals and highlight that, yes, AI is a tool, not demonize it, not be like, there'll be different revolutions in human history. We've heard about the typewriter, we've heard about the internet, all of that. You have your critics, you have your skeptics, but there's a way we can embrace it while still maintaining and advocating for the need of creatives to still be employed and still be integral in terms of this whole space. So I want to encourage creatives not to run from this. I want to, especially as poets and in the writing world, I know the Society of Writers had a huge campaign and strike then because a lot of writers' work was being used to train AI without crediting them. So there are ways we can stand up, there are ways we can push back, but not demonize AI. It is here to stay. It can help us in a lot of ways, and I think it leaves room for more creativity. It leaves room for that human-to-human connection, and yeah, that's my viewpoint.
Did you have any opinions on this, or do
Yeah, I think AI probably has a bit to go still until I can sort of apply it to what I do. But I think, similar to what Taiwo said, it's a very useful tool. And so I think it's only a matter of time before we'll start having tools that might integrate into our daily roles.
I mean, they told us to basically start using AI in our role. So I work as a medical writer, and when we first heard that, we thought, okay, our jobs are being taken. But then when we actually started using it, there was so many problems in terms of, obviously we're the ones who do the research. So we will say, I don't know, create this report from these references or from this summary, and then it will start making up references that weren't there. So what you said, Taiwo, about checking, making sure that you check, that really will help. As you said, as an assistant, so you have to, if you have a junior staff, you would actually check their work and make sure that it's correct and not taking that as gospel. So I think that was a really good point that you made.
I think to second that from creative side, so in my part-time role, we also sometimes work with a lot of external clients, and as you mentioned, Taiwo, the importance of double checking is because sometimes we'll see people be like, oh yeah, this is like a marketing strategy, or this is like a brand strategy, and then like you said, you can see like the extra long dashes, you can see certain things, and you're just like, is this report really written by you? And it can also be really concerning, because as you mentioned, sometimes, for when they're working with bigger clients, for example, there's a lot of budget that goes behind producing some of these, whether it's an impact report or something like that. And then when you're just like, did someone just use the £20 a month ChatGPT, write me a quick summary or detailed report, which I think is really important. But also I know from a sort of career aspect, so I used to work at my university in the career department, and this was something 2 years ago that was coming up, because you get students applying for jobs or internships or placements that the university had established like a really good relationship, and they were just like, we want to put the best students forward, the students who really want this role, and you would have people, it's worse than even what you were talking about. It would be like 2 brackets, hiring manager, I'm applying for the insert role, and then right at the end it'd be like, kind regards, insert your name here. And they would send this off and be like, oh yeah, this is great. I know there was even one student that their CV was amazing. The career advisor was just like, this person sounds like an incredible candidate. I've never met them before, but I want to give them like a practice interview. She did the practice interview, and then afterwards she was just like, I need you to be honest with me. I don't think this is actually yours. Like, you wrote the CV, and you was like, yes, that's totally true. She was like, some of these experiences you've kind of exaggerated and use ChatGPT to flesh out. And he was like, yes, I didn't actually do a lot of these things. So this was 2 years ago when students were just applying for like internships while they were studying. Look at it 2 years later, and we're seeing it a lot more and used in different cases. But on a positive side, as a creative, I sometimes use it with video editing. So with a lot of podcasts we use multiple angles, and anyone who's done video editing knows that like sometimes trying to cut between different cameras, especially if you're doing that in the like post-production period, can be quite long and it can be quite tedious. So we use a tool called Autopod that basically, based on visual cues and audio settings from each of the microphones, will know which camera to switch to. So if we were using it today, we'd know, we've only got one camera today, but that's the camera that's on like the whole panel, then on the individuals, it will switch to that. So I would say as a creative, I do see it as a tool that can help me to get my work done quicker. It helps me to basically also plan out my day more. Because whereas, a podcast episode editing might have taken me like 2 to 3 hours, now I can edit it into smaller chunks of like 30 minutes of the software just running and doing the changes, and it lets me customize it as well, which I think is really cool. I have a specific question for you, Tom, because I know some people in the audience they might be creatives who are looking to start apps. And as you mentioned, I think some of them have said, AI tools, they allow you to do they allow you to set up the app, but the customization part of it isn't really there just yet. So for anyone in the audience who's interested in setting up their own app, what would be your advice? Should they pay for the course? I know some people have said that these courses can be quite expensive, or these boot camps. What would be your first step that they should do?
It's a great question, and it's a question that I get quite a lot, and my answer to it all the time is everything that you want to learn about making apps is available for free if you're willing to find it. I think, Apple and Google have amazing documentation on how to make a basic app. And I think once you get the basics down for free, you can just really leverage your curiosity to make the final touches. If your first idea for an app is to make the next Uber or Facebook, maybe scale it back a little bit. You know, I always say, you know, try and make it as simple as possible. I often tell people the first version, as an example, the first version of Instagram that came out, the reason why, so Instagram stands for Instant Telegram, and the two people that made Instagram, they were working on a different app, and one of the features that people really liked was the ability to add filters onto photos. So when Instagram first came out with their standalone app, so they scrapped that idea and they released Instagram only as an iOS app. There was 7 presets for filters, and that was all you can do. So you had upload a picture, add a filter, that was it. There was no messaging, there was no video, there was no stories, there was no what Instagram is now. And they had that for 2 years before they released the Android version. So I always say that story because when you're building something, you don't need to build the next greatest thing. Simple, get feedback from other users. You know, a lot of people are like, what's the Android app? Well, it's coming, it's coming. And then, you know, they grew their user base, they added features slowly, and obviously the rest is history. Instagram's like one of the most used apps globally. So yeah, like walk before you can run, have an idea, all the information is out there, all the gaps you can probably use AI or Stack Overflow. You know, when I made my first app, it took me 6 months to build it, you know, as I was working a full-time job, and then I rewrote it 3 years ago, and it took me 3 days, like just evenings. And that just shows you like, oh, you know, you have to start somewhere, and then your skills, you just get better and better and better. So yeah, keep it small. All the information is out there for free. You don't have to pay a penny. And if you have any trouble, drop me a line.
So I have a question, this will be the final question, we'll take questions from the audience, and this is probably me and Biiftuu. This would be a system where kind of asked about the Black women experience. So do you give them some advice to Black women in the audience who are either creators or in STEM? Yeah, just your biggest advice that you could give to them.
I'd probably say, well, just based on when I was in the position of before I joined the industry and sort of from the outside looking in, that wherever you want to be, you will belong. It's not a matter of what the people around you look like. If you want to be there, you should be there. I think even now, it's important that I tell myself that, because again, I still don't see people that look like me in my industry. And so it's sort of important to know that just because your surroundings don't look familiar or don't look like you, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't be there.
I'm going to echo that and also say that no one has done it like you, right? Creatively, I'll go from the creative point because you've gone from the science point, especially as like a poet. No one has written about love from Pelumi's perspective. No one has written about family from Pelumi's perspective. And the same can be applied to whatever field you're going into as a Black woman, the Black woman experience. No one can do it like you, and you have something to contribute to that space. And once you correct that narrative within yourself, you will start showing up with more confidence in that space.
Yeah, I think that deserves a wrap up.
Any questions from the audience?
Hey, I guess, yeah, question for the whole panel. How do you navigate sacrifice? So, I guess with a say some examples. So, with regards to people who navigate both sides of the art and science side, obviously, from personal experience, you can't really go full on in both, but by navigating both, it means you're going to have to say no to some opportunities. There'll be some opportunities like this, and I guess with Biiftuu as well. Like, I'm in the engineering space as well, so I know there's things like chartership, CPD, qualifications, etc. that I know like a lot of my early careers colleagues will be chasing, trying to get in really early because obviously it will advance their career, but there are obviously sacrifices that are going to be made. Either, well, if you end up kind of going down that route, then there's sacrifices that get made in your personal life, and then obviously if you kind of prioritize the work-life balance, then you're going to have to say no to other things that would advance you professionally as well. So, yeah, just overall, how do you go about sacrificing the way?
With navigating sacrifice, I think you mentioned something about different stages of your career. I think it's very important to define what success means to you. So, you know each other. So there have been points where I've had to focus on completing my PhD and I've not been involved in some creative development opportunities that my peers are involved in, and I'm there watching on the sideline cheering, right? There are times where it's like, oh my gosh, will my time ever come? But I'm also a Christian, and there's scripture that says there's a time and season for everything. And I have actually experienced that. Of course, those seasons were tough when I had to say no or could not be involved in certain things. And they were painful because I'm like, oh my gosh, this is very frustrating. But that time away helped me to not only define success for myself, but cultivate my craft a lot more. With saying no, the time and season comes as you mature along your career journey. So there were things that I was very excited about and chasing when I was younger in my career journey that now I'm just like, no, it's not, that does not apply to this season. I am now in a space where I'm seeking a lot more stability. I have the privilege of merging both my scientific side and my creative side in a career that I'm enjoying. But there were moments where I had to maybe take a job that I saw as a stepping stone to allow me and fund other things that I needed to do, whether it's funding an application for something or whether it's I'm networking and I'm finding out more about this industry to see if this is the right fit. And yeah, it's part of life. There's some things that you'll do that you may not enjoy, but it's a stepping stone to the next thing, and you're cultivating skills and discipline and staying power that you can apply when that dream does materialize.
I think that is such a powerful answer, and I think the only thing that I can really add to that is, you know, what's your measure of success? You know, saying no is really difficult, but sometimes saying no really allows you to advance in your own personal career development, your own personal development, no matter what that kind of looks like. When I first started off my career, it was all about downloads, how many downloads. But you know, it's only after being there for a couple of years you realize a download basically is worthless, right? You know, I said earlier that 1 million people downloaded my app, but would it surprise you if I said, you know, 10% of that million have never opened the app, deleted the app? So it's a download, but they deleted it, so never got to experience it. You know, the phone's running out of space, you know, last one in, first one out, they got rid of it. And I think for me now, you know, my measure of success is someone getting in touch, you know, I had the great pleasure, it's kind of crazy, but seeing someone use my app on the tube and I tapped them on the shoulder and I was like, you know, it's so amazing, like, you know, I'm the first person I've seen use something that I made out in the wild. The person looked at me like I was crazy. Just went back into the game. I was like, you know, I guess that's cool. They're really enjoying the app that they just don't care that the person who made it right. So I think as you evolve, your measure of success changes, and I think that will really kind of reinforce the choices that you make. But I can't really add to what you've said. It was great.
Yeah, I think you both said really well. I think what you said, Pelumi, about what success means to you is really thought-provoking. And funny enough, it's a conversation that I've had quite recently with colleagues and people that I work with, because I think, especially in Formula One, a lot of people have made a lot of sacrifices to be in that space. People have, you know, moved away from across the world to work in Formula One team, or I mean, it applies to many industries, not just mine. They left their family, friends, everything they know to go and work somewhere where they don't know anyone, or to go and do a master's degree in a different country. And so I think in that as well, it's very difficult. It makes any decision really, really difficult, because you sort of stand back and you think, I've given up a lot to even just make this decision. And so if I make the wrong one, is everything I've done now a waste? Have I given everything up for no reason? And so I think that it's in a good way. I think you can use that to drive you, because it reminds you why you're doing something. You're chasing something and you want to be successful in what you're doing. And so remembering how much you've given up for that, I think is important. But it also makes you think about, especially for me, growing up, the only thing that was important was books. Studying, getting into uni, getting my A levels, getting the grades that I need, getting into that course. That course was then going to help me get my placement. That was then going to help me get my job. It was very linear, and I had to tick things off on the list, right? And so it meant that I had my blinkers on. And like all that mattered was getting into this industry and nothing else. And all of a sudden, 2.5 years ago, I found myself with my first job in F1. It's like, great, I've succeeded. What else can I do? Like, I've done what I needed to do. But then it sort of brought about this feeling of, okay, well, now what? So I sort of look up and I look around and I see people doing other things. They have hobbies. They do things outside of work. They have interests that are in no way related to engineering or design or F1. And I sort of, in a way that's, I don't mean to scare you, but it sort of made me think, like, what am I? That good question that we had at the start. Who am I outside of my role and my job title in my industry? And it made me think for a really long time, because forever, for as long as I can remember, the only thing that mattered was getting that job title in this specific company, and that was it. So I think it's really, really important to remember that there is also more to life than just that job title, or just that industry, or just that one image you have on your mind of like you sitting in this specific space with these specific people. I think it's really important to sort of zoom out and think, are there any other things that I want to do in life that aren't related to this one success that I have in my mind? And for me, that might be hobbies, because a lot of my interests are just car related. And so now that I've gotten into where I want to be, I've sort of stepped back and thought, what do I want to do outside of that? I bought so many random, but I was like, I want to do something else, my wind down can't be watching F1, because now it's part of my job, and if things go wrong now, everything's like a mess, right? So stepping back and having something that's also unrelated to what you're doing is so, so important. Especially, I'd say as well, I get a lot of questions where students or people outside of the industry ask about how to get into the industry. And again, it touches upon what we said about the misconceptions of STEM, where, again, like what I did, grades, all that matters, and A levels and uni. It's just as important to be a well-rounded person, to have interests and hobbies and things outside of work. Because at the end of the day, you're still working with human beings. You're still working with other people in a department, in a team, in a group of people that are still trying to do the same thing that you're doing. you're still going to have to go with coffee breaks, you know, go to lunch, speak to your manager, have one-to-ones, have interpersonal skills, know how to navigate certain conversations and situations. And so that's so important as well. And so I think it's really important to sort of zoom out. There's a lot of sacrifice to it, but it's important to also remember that it's not always just about that one success you have in your mind, and there's more to life. Enjoy yourself.
Any other questions? So Hannah at the back, shoot up first. Thank you.
Hi, just touching on the last thing in regards to interpersonal relations. So, most people on the panel are both creative and also working within STEM. So how do you navigate speaking to different stakeholders within both industries? Because I think from the first question in regards to the personality traits of someone that works in STEM and creative, they're like polar opposites sometimes within the spectrum. So like, does it get exhausting even, knowing when to code switch when you're doing your creative job and then your 9 to 5?
That is an amazing question and something that I often struggle with. So before this event, I've entered a competition and the category that I've gone in this competition is something called Build in Public, and a friend of mine said I should do it literally. So Build in Public typically is showing screenshots of what you're working on, taking pictures of you by your computer, maybe in a coffee shop saying, you know, I'm working on a new API. But my friend said I should go out and like take my laptop with a table and a banner and business cards and like build in public spaces. So before coming here, I was in St. Paul's, I was on the Millennium Bridge with my laptop, table, sitting down, and loads of people, you know, which was really nice, came up to me and, you know, said, oh, you know, I really like word games. I'll take a card and said, oh, why did you build a word game? Did you enjoy it? Ask me questions about apps. And that was something that, you know, when my friend told me about it, it was kind of like a joke. But it's so different. And I posted about this on Twitter, and the amount of people that reached out to me was like, oh, you're crazy for going out and crazy for talking to people. But we're social beings, like we talk to people every single day. Why would it be so weird for me to have a desk and I've got plants on it and I've got like a mug of tea and stuff like that? So, okay, that's a bit strange, but you know, having the communication with people, but you know, I think it's hard, but it gets easier, and I think, you know, it's really, really cheesy, but you know, when people say your network is your net worth, I think it's really true. Like the connections that you have with people, you know, the conversations that you have with people is like make and break in this industry. You know, when I had my first iPhone App Store feature, someone from the Apple team sent me an email, and I just ignored it because I was like, this is spam. And then he emailed me again and said, hey, I'm not sure if you got my email, but we would love to do a story on your development journey. Would you be interested? So I said yes, and he told me during the call, he was like, he showed me, he was like, we've got this WhatsApp group, and it's like people with scores from a game that I made, and I was just like, he was like, oh yeah, so I heard about you through this person, and this person told this other person, and I was like, you know, that's the only way, you know, it was shown. And there was people, when the Apple were like super secretive about everything, and they posted this thing about me on the App Store, someone that I haven't spoken to since year 5 sent me a message on Facebook. So there was 2 shocking things: Facebook message, and so I didn't even know we were friends on Facebook. And he was a builder, and he sent me a message up 5:30 in the morning saying, oh, I just saw your thing on the App Store. It's so great, because we went to primary school together. The thing I was telling you about my old primary school teacher, he saw that first and he was like, it's amazing to see that you're still doing what you like to do. But that is the whole communication piece. He didn't have to He didn't have to reach out to me, but that made my day. It was like, oh, you know, someone I haven't spoken to in, you know, a very, very long time reached out to me and said, you know, congratulations. And that changed my whole, you know, the way I was feeling. You know, people that I used to work with reached out, and, you know, my mum was telling everyone about it as well, which was quite embarrassing because I went to see her. There's people on the street, my son. It's great for your son. So I think communication is really difficult, and it's a skill that has to be learned, but the doors that it opens is absolutely, you know, crazy. Like, you know, your trajectory is like here, but once you open yourself, you know, and it's scary and it's, you know, tough, but I cannot really emphasize enough how important it is to kind of get out of your shell. And, you know, we're social beings. Like, you know, no one's ever, if you put your hand out and say, you know, I'm lovely to meet you, no one's ever going to be like, you know, I don't want to talk to you. And, you know, your best friend could be in this room. I say all of that to say this, it's good to talk.
You mentioned an element of it being exhausting, or so I'm assuming your default is an introvert, or are you an ambivert?
I'm an extroverted introvert.
Okay.
Is that an ambivert?
Yeah. So the reason I posed that question is, like, even how you phrased it, I've learned about you from how you phrased that question. So you're navigating this journey of communicating and probably finding it draining sometimes. And there's an element of energy management that comes into that, and knowing maybe there's certain times of day that you're better at socializing with people, certain points of the day where you just need a nap. You need to recharge. As someone who is an extroverted introvert as well, in a large media agency, there are times in the workday that I will literally either go to the well-being room or find like a quiet corner in the office and just be with my book and just recharge. And then after that, I'm good. I'll go back out and interact with people. And I also learn from people who are naturally more sociable, maybe have more practice in that. I was speaking to a friend and she said, she gave this great analogy of coins, that extroverts, people who are more relational, start their day with more coins than introverts. But as an introvert or an extrovert introvert, think of it as a point of, how can I get more coins in the day? How can I take an interest in someone and maybe learn something new and gain a coin and see it as, flip it as a way of like, okay, I am recharging. And also acknowledging, okay, I have weak points in terms of sometimes I find it draining, so I know that I'm coming to a networking event, and the whole point of a networking event is to network. So I need to make sure I speak to maybe at least 2 new people and get their Instagram or LinkedIn or their contact and follow up with them after the event, right? And setting yourself those micro goals, you start building that skill and it starts becoming a part of who you are. That's my tip. Very practically, you can build those skills, but also it's okay to take a nap. Sometimes it's okay to just take a moment and recharge somewhere else. Yeah.
So, any other questions? One at the front, one at the back. I mean, what I'll do is, if we can do all, because of time, I'm enjoying the conversation, but because of time, if we could have all 3 questions said at the same time, and then panelists, I will let you pick which question you want to answer. So if we start the question at the back, and then if you did have a question, if you could also raise your hand, so then we can also know to pass over to you.
Yeah. My question kind of refers back to what you said about like zooming out and like having things other than just work. I'm in a bit of a funky situation because I think I need to zoom in. I've taken quite the scenic route after graduating. I graduated in biochemistry, but I realised that's not my life. I can't be doing labs. so I shifted to the creative industry, but now I feel like, or I realize that I have so many different avenues that I can take within the creative sphere. It's a bit overwhelming, and I know that I need to start building the building blocks for like the future and things like that, but I don't necessarily know which direction to take. So I guess my question is, how would you, or what would you advise to someone who is fresh into the creative industry, knows that they want to be in this industry, but they just does not know where to go?
We'll pause on that answer. One of you three, please pick who would like to answer. Can we have the other two questions? If you could raise your hands, please.
Hi, thanks so much for the panel. Yeah, I'm Victoria. Thanks so much for also for hosting as well, and like, hosting this really great event. The question I had for you, or I guess just one of you, to know all that you know now, especially looking at the intersection between the creative arts and then also STEM, what advice would you give to your 18-year-old self?
Great question. And the final question at the front.
Yeah, again, thank you for saying about your experiences and everything. It's been really interesting. And I was just wondering from the other end, let's say, because you all come from the STEM background and then bringing the creativity into your work, what about if you came from an art background? For instance, I came from architecture and I'm more of an arty school, and I wanted to look into bridging data science and then spatial design. But it's quite a niche, like two disciplines like combined. And I was thinking, I guess, going through networking as a way to break into the industry, but then you're kind of still competing with, let's say, people that got qualifications in data science, and they might look more appealing to companies and organizations, even if the company organization is an architecture or urban planning centered firm. So I wanted to know what way you would kind of break into quite like niche disciplines. Yeah.
Yeah, I was about to say,
Yeah.
those two are
I mean, I think I can take a question about advice to your 18-year-old self. Well, similar to what I mentioned before, but me at 18, again, was very head down, focused on chasing one thing only, not really allowing myself to get distracted by any other things, even if they were trying to be good to me. And so I think I'd probably tell myself, A, that it's not a sign of weakness or a sign of giving up if I'm not working towards the thing that I'm trying to get. I think a lot of the time, especially with conversations I've had recently with colleagues and friends, if they're like considering maybe a career change or considering doing something different to what they're doing now, they see it as giving up. And I think it's important to sort of reframe that and not see it as just because I'm not doing the thing that 10-year-old me thought was the best thing in the world doesn't mean that it's not a great thing, and doesn't mean that I'm not being successful. It just means that A, it's more important to me right now, and that's what matters. And B, it's not you giving up because you're chasing something you want. And so that's a good thing, because it's a sign that it will make you happier. So I think, yeah, what I would tell my 18-year-old self is that just because it's not working towards that one goal you have doesn't mean that it's not important or you shouldn't do it.
After you, both questions are great questions, so you. Okay, I will take your question. I would reframe it and say, why wouldn't an employer go after you? You know, you're bringing something new to the table. You're saying, you know, oh, someone who's got pure architect, degree, but you have the best of both worlds. You know, if I was looking to employ someone, I would choose you. I'd be like, this is someone who's got multiple interests. They're going to bring something new to the party. So I wouldn't think of it as a disadvantage. I would think of it as an advantage instead. And I think people that have multiple interests always are, some of the most incredible people that you meet. Not always, but I think, you know, if I was to put money down, I'll definitely, you know, hedge my bets. So I think you should definitely reframe that and think of it as something that's positive, because I think that's awesome. It's really cool.
I feel like your question's linking away, and there are two sides of it. Again, why not you? What I said earlier about reframing that inner narrative so you show up with confidence. A lot of things to do with applying for jobs and opportunities start with confidence and believing that why not you? Why not you? But also, practically speaking, transferable skills for both of you. So you're saying coming from a senior group and niching down, and you're saying coming from a niche area and wanting to expand slightly. Look at the transferable skills and articulate those transferable skills that apply to those industries that are catching your eye, and areas where you may lack those technical, more practical skills, be honest about it. And a lot of employers may have internal training programs or development opportunities, because speaking for, I don't know, on your job, you're probably still learning a lot, right? You get your foot in, but you are learning as well. There are things you don't know. I was talking about P&Ls. I did not study accounting. I did not study anything to do with finance. But I realized that, okay, I'm dealing with a lot more in terms of billables and looking at big numbers, and like, okay, I want to learn a bit more. So looked at classes available within my organization, took a session, and going over the slides, right? So look at the transferable skills, articulate that, look at the practical, more technical skills, be honest, look at maybe if there are, I don't know if they do like hackathons for different things nowadays, or any courses you can do on Coursera or MOOCs and all of that, and see where you can fill those gaps. And I'm happy to have a discussion with you guys afterwards as well, because yeah, you can do it. You can do it.
And if you didn't get to hear the other panelists answer the question, they are not going straight away, so feel free to ask them any more questions or that question. But a round of applause for the panelists. So we've probably spoken to Peter, but we won't keep you for too long. Just to let you know, that's why it's work. Yes, we have a feedback form. We would love if you are able to do it. I've been informed by Abigail there's a tendency for people to not fill out feedback forms when they emailed it. So that's why we've got you to doing it today.
Please do it.
Please do it. We want to keep doing amazing events like this.
There are QR codes on those screens.
Also, screens next to you as well. But yes, please do it. It should not take more than, I would say, max 5 minutes.
5 minutes is too long.
100%. So please do definitely fill out the feedback form. We want to know if you want to keep seeing stuff like this and be in cool spaces like Canva. I guess a quick announcement. Did everyone have a good time? Did they like the space? Is everyone having a good time? So yeah, if you want to keep doing more stuff like this, please let us know. We want to make sure we can frame these events to meet your expectations and what you're doing. We will get to the networking part, but we're also going to just quickly talk about some stuff coming from both businesses to keep you interested for the rest of this year, and then we're looking to 2026. Believe it or not, next week is the beginning of October. So I'm going to hand over to Abigail to talk about it from a SiSTEM perspective.
Yeah, so with SiSTEM, I heard there's quite a few biomedical science, life science graduates or students in the room. Or if you know anyone who's a sixth former that's interested in biomedical science, or even interested in medicine, but also wants to find out what else they can do apart from medicine, we've got an event called Beyond Medicine, and this event will be held at London South Bank University on the 25th of October, so it's a Saturday, between 12 and 3. We're going to put it all on our socials, so if you're not following us already, SiSTEM UK or platforms. And yeah, the event, we're going to have amazing speakers from a range of different careers, mainly people who have had a life science degree, who are now doing things like science policy, medical writing, clinical research, academia, you name it. So it's going to be really great opportunity to network and also to hear other stories and how you can actually pivot into these roles. And then the next thing is also SiSTEM at the Black Tech Fest. What is the date?
9th of October.
Thank you. 2 minutes. 9th of October, and we'll be holding a panel on women in STEM, particularly women in tech, Black women in tech. So if you want to come and haven't got your ticket yet, we also have a discount code. So once again, you can message us or you can speak to me after, and I can give you that code. It would be really great to see some of you there, as our session will be in the morning. I believe it's between 10. I know you wouldn't look at the time. I'm looking at you for the time. I think it's 10 something. Yes, so that's also happening as well, and we'll be speaking with 2 amazing women in the tech space, Hosanna and Amma. And then we also have an event specifically for engineering students. So if you are an engineering student in any discipline, or actually it's just for the undergrad. So if you're undergrads and postgraduate engineering students, we have an event with an amazing organization called STEMazing. And this event is at a company called GPD, engineering company. So we're basically doing like an inside evening. So if you're interested to come, it's particularly for women, so women in engineering. So if you know anyone or you're interested, please let us know. I think it's between 5:30 maybe to 8. So please let us know. The date for that will be the 13th of October. So that's also another opportunity. And we also always have many opportunities, so please message us. And our events are not only for women as well, so the guys that will let out, give us a comment and support.
And yeah, from a pick up the mic perspective, so we will be having a Black History panel discussion next month on the 24th. So make sure that you follow us, Pick Up the Mic Network on all platforms, or Pick Up the Mic Limited on LinkedIn. And you can subscribe to our newsletter on LinkedIn if you want to get some cool funding opportunities as well as our newsletter on our website. We, for the first time ever, are doing an end of year event, so we're going to do it early because we know December gets packed and everyone will be going back to Nigeria or Ghana for December. So we will be doing an end of year event in the last week in November. We're doing that at Sunset House. The date is TBC, but please, if you're interested, if you want to continue stuff like this, then come along. And then finally, looking towards next year, we will be hitting the ground running because anyone who listens to the podcast will know I've been saying I have the bold ambition of changing it from wild to bold, doing one event for every month for next year. So we're going to do different events on different scales, on different topics. That's why we need the feedback form done. I'm going to go back again if you didn't scan it, because we want to know if you want to continue seeing stuff like this. Obviously, both of us individually host events, but we love collaborating. SiSTEM have been an amazing community partner. So yeah, if you want to know more, if you want to do more of this, then please let us know through the feedback form. But yeah, keep an eye out on the Pick Up the Mic YouTube channel page. Each week we have a new podcast episode or video coming out on our YouTube channel, so please subscribe. And like I said, if you're looking to be on the channel, some people already are in this room, some people have been on the channel. Please do speak to me. But yeah, the most important thing is for you guys to network. And I realized I didn't add a slide to it, but of course we have to do a vote of thanks. So very quickly, I want to say a massive round of applause for SiSTEM for helping us to put on this event. She was not here, but she designed the slides. So Donna, the second half, or the third, sorry, Rhonda, but the third of SiSTEM, she couldn't be here because she's actually out on the awards evening, so we hope she wins. But she will be at Black Tech Fest, so if you do want to meet Donna, then definitely attend that. A huge thanks to Canva for letting us use their event space, because we wouldn't have been able to do this without them. But most importantly, a huge thanks to all of you and the panelists, because this amazing conversation wouldn't have happened without these three incredible individuals telling us their story. And of course, you all incredible individuals coming along. So yes, I've talked on for too long because I can see my sister looking at me. So instead, there is pizza. Again, if you do have allergies, please let me know. Sorry, one final thing, because this is very quick. I won't get him to say anything, but Alex, who's been doing the photography, he's been my intern for the last 3 months, he's done an amazing job. This is actually his last day, so he came along and supported this event. So I would love if everyone could just give Alex a massive round of applause. Thank you, Alex. And because of that, we've got a nice bit of cake as well, so there'll be some cake to celebrate that as well. But thanks so much. Network, connect, make sure you get people's details. LinkedIn, Instagram, whatever. Rhonda, you are basically our DJ for the evening. Put some tunes on. And yeah, feel free to network. Thank you very much, and speak to you